Today is Monday, November, last day of November 2020. Let us set our intention, motivation by saying the four measurables. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. With that, let's meditate for 13 minutes today. Last week we did a pretty extensive review of the techniques. So I'm going to bypass that and just go into sitting meditation. For those of you who, I think most of you have done it. So if anybody's new and hasn't done it, maybe at some point I'll talk you through it, but let's sit and meditate. Great. Very good. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things from last week. That one is there are many different kinds of meditation. This is not the only kind, and this is not the only kind of Buddhist meditation, right? This is calm abiding meditation, and it's about working with thought. We spoke about this, many times. So I think someone was asking, like, as we talk about using this practice in your daily life, becoming more mindful, becoming more aware of the thoughts, you can apply this type of technique. But I think there may be a little bit of misconception thinking that thought is bad somehow. So in our day-to-day life, thinking is not, the absence of thought is what we're going for. It's not really the case. What we're trying to do is be able to work with negative emotion. Part of, I always talk about the teachings of the Buddha, very simple. One, do no harm. Two, cultivate a wealth of virtue, do good. And three is tame the mind. So by taming the mind, that helps you to do no harm, and it helps you to cultivate virtue. Cultivating virtue actually is going to come from the mind. So in your day-to-day life, you have a negative thought about hating someone or being jealous of someone, the practice can help you become aware of that and let that go, not act out of that place and create more negative karma, right? And create suffering, behave in ways we don't want to behave. Conversely, if a positive thought arises, well, that you can use productively and figure out, you know, you're inspired to help, figure out, you need your thought process and your intelligence to act effectively in the world. There are, forms of meditation where you actually ponder certain concepts of Buddhism and really try to understand them in bigger ways, like interdependence, something very complex like that, or karma, or impermanence, things like that. To actually like sit in kind of a quiet meditative pose and ponder those things, in ponder in a very deep way, in a deeper way than we're used to, or just, and really try to understand it. So let's be clear about that. We're not talking about avoiding thought for the rest of our life, or that's not the goal here. Someone was talking about, if you're a creative person and you're thinking about a story or a character, if you're a writer or you're an artist and you want to think about something to paint, you have to use your mental faculties, the thought process, to approach this in a way. What we're working on is becoming aware of how our mind works, so we can, those three little simple teachings of Buddha, do no harm, so we can work on doing less harm or no harm. And we can become aware of using our mental, our minds and bodies and doing good, right? The other thing was, someone else said during the meditation last week, they were overcome with a lot of grief at the passing of a loved one. and asked if that meant, they got kind of consumed by the grief, was actively mourning and crying or whatever. The emotion came up, and thought, let the emotion kind of take over. And the person asked if that was wrong for meditation. It's like, um, grieving is an important process and a natural one, right? So if you were doing something important, say you were driving down the highway, down the highway, and you realized you were overcome with grief and it was interfering with what you were doing, maybe it would be a good thing to interrupt it. Or if you were at work and you needed, and you needed some time, you would stop working and maybe take a few minutes for yourself to let the grief out. This is meditation practice. It's not, we're not stopping our lives and, and putting our lives on pause while we're doing it. It's a practice of working with our minds. So something like that, that's natural and important. Maybe this is not the time to be meditating. Maybe it's a time you need to be sitting with your emotion. Just, I wanted to, bring up those distinctions. We can, we'll do a reading and then we'll go to some questions. If you have questions or want to prompt some discussion, go to the Q&A function and type in some questions or ideas or topics for discussion that you find interesting. But I hope you're able to hear me okay. I'm sorry if it's been a little bit low volume. We're going to go to the book we've been reading from the last few weeks, The Heart of Compassion, 37 verses on the practice of, is Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's commentary on the 37 verses on the practice of a bodhisattva by Goltru Togme. It's a great book. All his books are great. All his teachings are great. There's a documentary about Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche called Brilliant Moon, narrated by Richard Gere and Lou Reed. It's actually a really good. It's a wonderful movie. He's a very inspiring teacher. And you should find the 37 practices. I'm sure you could find them online. 37 practices of Bodhisattva online. And you should look at those and familiarize yourself with those. And they're very important teachings. And they're the heart teachings of my teacher, Garchen Rinpoche. So today we're going to read verse 20, which goes like this. If one does not conquer one's own hatred, the more one fights outer enemies, the more they will increase. Therefore, with the armies of loving kindness and compassion, to tame one's own mind is the practice of a bodhisattva. Once you overcome the hatred within your own mind, you will discover that in the world outside, there is no longer any such thing as even a single enemy. I'm going to read that again. Once you overcome the hatred within your own mind, you will discover that in the world outside, there is no longer any such thing as even a single enemy. But if you keep giving free rein to your feelings of hatred and try to overcome your outer adversaries, you will find that however many of them you manage to defeat, there will always be more to take their place. Even if you could subjugate all the beings in the universe, your anger would only grow stronger. You will never be able to deal with it properly by indulging it. Hatred itself is the true enemy and cannot be allowed to exist. The way to master hatred is to meditate one-pointedly on patience and love. Once love and compassion take root in your being, there can be no outer adversaries. As the 100 verses say, if you kill out of anger, your enemies will be never ending. If you kill anger, that will kill your enemies once and for all. I'll read that again. If you kill out of anger, your enemies will be never ending. If you kill anger, that will kill your enemies once and for all. These days, famines, conflicts, wars, and other upheavals are increasing all over the world. This is because people allow their emotions to run wild and act under their power. Were hatred, pride, jealousy, desire, and stupidity to decrease, not only conflicts, but also epidemics and natural calamities in the world would decrease as well, like the smoke disappearing when a fire is extinguished, and people would naturally turn their mind towards the Dharma. It is a crucial point of the teachings to become conscious that attachment, aversion, and ignorance are your oldest enemies, and that once you have overcome them, there are no further enemies in the world outside. The time will come when you see very clearly and precisely how this is so. If you do not understand this point and act carelessly, your emotions can get completely out of control. Examine anger itself, and you will find that it is nothing but a thought. If that angry thought disappears, it will not lead to an action done in anger with its negative karma. Trample on anger with realization, and it dissolves like a cloud in the sky. And as it dissolves, the notion of enemy will vanish with it. Anger and the other emotions will keep coming up in the mind of an ordinary person, yet they can all be neutralized with the right antidotes, for they are completely empty in essence. It is important to realize that all outer torments come from harboring these poisons within your mind stream. Someone else brought something up talking about righteous anger, and the difference between anger, righteous anger, and righteous anger being a motivating factor for defending certain causes or acting with injustice, fighting against injustice, and acting. Anger anger can be a motivating factor in that respect. I think is that what the person was bringing up, righteous anger. But I was thinking a lot about that this week, and part of me is thinking righteousness and anger are two different things. There's no such thing as righteous anger. They're two separate things coming together at the same time. Anger is just the anger, and the righteous part is some kind of discriminating awareness that sees the injustice or sees it, something that needs defending or something that needs protecting. For example, if you look at two skilled boxers, right? Boxing is about physically overcoming an opponent. Often one boxer will try to make the other one angry, because when they get angry, they lose control. And boxing, is about skillful control to overpower the opponent. And that the anger can actually interfere with that. So think about that. So if you overcome, if the feeling of righteousness and anger together motivates you to, I'm going to defend this cause, or I'm going to become an activist to promote this, defeat injustice or promote something that you believe in. Responding just out of the anger is not going to be as effective as being more calm and focused and clear, and then you can be more skillful in addressing whatever issue it is. Let us take a question. I hear voices and people tell me they're my thoughts. I have schizoaffective diagnosis, but I feel I can separate my thoughts from external voices. Should I treat these voices as thoughts and let them pass without staining the sky? What about when they have seemed to target and mob me? Should that happen again? How do I hang in there? I've made it this far and not currently ill, but I have episodes. Are you familiar with such things in the creative community? I don't know much about schizoaffective diagnosis, so I can't even begin to address that. I mean, that seems like a specific, psychological or maybe even medical condition. So I'm sure it seems you already have someone you work with professionally to help you with that. I can't address that, as I really don't. I'm not qualified to. But I do believe that meditation, regardless of whatever you're dealing with psychologically or physically, meditation can't hurt you. Is there a way to use this method in the moment when you feel a more severe anxiety attack coming on as a way to help manage a panic attack before it gets out of hand? Um, Again, that kind of falls into what I just said. And you know, the panic, literal panic attacks, anxiety attacks may be a symptom of something a bit more chronic psychologically or physically that you may need, you know, someone trained and professional in those fields to help you deal with. Um, and again, I don't think meditation could hurt you and can only benefit you by making that your practice. But an actual panic attack may need some other kind of intervention. I'm not really sure. You know, these are specific um, psychological, you know, and physical issues that I don't have. I'm not trained in. But I can't imagine that meditation wouldn't be a benefit um, when you're not in the throes of something like that. Is the area where you meditate important? I notice you're in a more spiritual type room. I thought of starting to meditate in parks and by lakes. Do you practice destination meditation? I mean, the area is only important in that it may inspire you to be more regular in your practice. You know, if you set up an area in your house that immediately you feel inspired there, you feel calm there, you feel peaceful there, it's uplifting. That's going to make you, you know, we have to trick ourselves into being more disciplined. For instance, I was never into the gym, working out, and then I tried martial arts, and I found a really great teacher and a great place to do it, and that inspired me to go. So I almost had to, you know, inspire me to, you know, actually bring exercise back into my life, which I didn't have for a long time. So it's almost like you have to find what's going to inspire you to make it regular. I knew I needed exercise, but that wasn't enough to get me in a gym on a regular basis. You know, so but I know the place and who's there. The teacher is inspiring place, and I want to be there, so I'm going to make a point of being there. It's kind of like setting up a live session like we do here. You know, if I just put out videos that were not live and just say there's a new video up for this week's class, probably a lot of people would be less inclined to be less disciplined about, you know, doing it rigidly every week. I think there's something powerful and motivating about all of us coming together to practice together at the same time. As far as outside, I mean, yeah, sure, you could do it outside. I think, you know, the danger is distraction, you know, being outside. And like we spoke about walking meditation, the danger about walking meditation is sometimes it just winds up being taking a walk and the meditation gets lost. But I mean, I think the best thing to do is, you know, a more formal sitting practice that becomes regular, you know, in a quiet place. That might be outside too, but if it's in like in a park and there's things going on, if you find yourself in the park with things going on, then I think it's good to you know, if you want to meditate, that's great. But I think as far as a place like that being your regular spot might be a little difficult, at least in the beginning. Okay. How do you handle meditation if it's an area where silence can't be achieved and there's outside noise? The instinct is to block it out, but in a sense, is it good to acknowledge it as we do our thoughts? Yeah. I mean, you can't really block it out, right? It's there. You can acknowledge it and let it go. It's more how our mind responds to the outside thought. You're going to start getting angry that this thought is there. I mean, I hear stuff. I hear animals, chickens and dogs, and you know, sometimes you hear lawnmowers or whatever. You recognize it and let it go. There's another method of maybe of, you know, hearing it as mantra, like Garchen Rinpoche does our White Tara mantra in the beginning of our class, and trying to almost imagine all noise that you hear as mantra. Skillful means, they call that, right? Does this mean that hatred exists without an outer adversary? Is the self considered an external enemy also? Would hatred exist if we did not interact with outside forces? Is anger and hatred infectious? What we're talking about is anger or hatred arising in our mind. That's what we're working with. I can't work on someone else's anger or hatred. I have no effect over that, right? I mean, that's their thing. I can't control somebody else. I mean, I can try to be non-aggressive to not exacerbate it, but it's we're dealing with anger as it arises in our own mind. We can only deal with the world through our own mind. All our perceptions originate there. So anger, the concept of anger, the energy of anger, the emotion of anger is going to arise in our mind. So what Dugel Khyentse Rinpoche is saying, and what Goltru Togme is saying, if we can work with that, and if we can, lessen that and eventually eliminate that, our outer conflicts are going to be less, right? You're going to lessen the anger that you're going to perceive in the world, the anger that you're going to deal with in the world. Yeah, I think it is contagious in a way. I mean, maybe not literally, but energetically contagious. And in some ways it's our responsibility. That's it. That's all we can do, is what I'm saying. I mean, unless you want to go live in a cave somewhere, and not deal with the world. And even then you may be angry at bugs, or you might be angry at snakes or something like that, But we have to deal with our own, tame the mind, do no harm, anger, just anger arising in the mind is not necessarily going to, do anything if we just leave it where it is and it dissolves on its own, like he even mentioned, like a cloud. It's when we engage with that anger and it becomes a story and it becomes about revenge. Oh, that person did this to me 3 months ago and I didn't get even with them, and I want to get even. And if I see this person again, I'm gonna, and it snowballs. And then we can do things that we regret. We can do things that just kind of perpetuate anger and create more negative karma. Is there a good way to deal with worries and fear? It seems like both of these feelings can cause your emotions to spiral. My brother and sister caught COVID and it's terrifying. Not sure how to confront my fears mindfully. COVID is terrifying. So, I mean, how do you deal with the fear of COVID is by, being careful. Not going out in crowds, wearing a mask, whatever, the doctors tell us to do. And yeah, of course, worries and fear are emotions that, that can paralyze us, that can cause, us to suffer. So if you try to not get so caught up in the story of that, I mean, the fear of COVID is good, because then we're going to do, if we didn't fear it and we just ignored it, we're going to get sick. A good chance we're going to get sick. It's when, the fear becomes overwhelming, the fear becomes, takes over your mind, and you go the other route, and, you're just waiting to get sick, and you're convinced you're going to get sick, and now you're in delusion. So you become aware of these emotions so you can react, like we were talking about the anger. Anger arises because of an injustice, and then if you kind of can sit with that and understand, well, what's the most effective way of dealing with this injustice? I'm going to become an activist. I'm going to, stand my ground and just say, no, I will not allow this to continue, whatever it is. The same thing with COVID. All right, I'm afraid. I seen my loved one get it. What am I going to do? I'm a scientist. Maybe I'm going to go try to help work on a vaccine. I'm going to volunteer, or I'm going to stay away from the hospital. I'm going to stay, listen and quarantine myself, whatever it is. How do we remember our meditation techniques in the middle of feeling anxious and when thoughts are going all over the place, despite trying to rely on our breath anger? Practice, practice, practice. There's no shortcut. I mean, most of us are beginners. That's like saying, I just started lifting weights. How can I lift 100 pounds? and I'm just lifting, I'm in the gym training with 20 pounds. It's going to take, the more you practice, the more you're going to become skilled in that. How does Buddhism embrace Christmas, or are they completely separate things? We got a Christmas tree today, and I just wondered how the two combined. Picking up on what you previously said, that Buddhism sits alongside many religions in general. I mean, Buddhism says nothing about Christmas. The Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha says nothing about Christmas. Buddha was 2,500 years ago before Christ, 500 years before Christ. So there's nothing in the Buddhist teachings about Christmas. I grew up with Christmas, so we'll have a Christmas dinner and give gifts. But it's more a kind of a cultural thing than a religious thing. And I imagine, the one thing Buddhism doesn't, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what the Buddha actually said about other religions, but I know what the Dalai Lama says about other religions, and that he's very respectful. And he does a lot of interfaith dialogues with, other religious teachers from Islam. He did something recently, I think, in a university in Indonesia with a Islamic Lama, a teacher or scholar or something, or high priest or something like that. He does a lot of those with Christians and Jews, and he's very respectful, and I think we can all be respectful. Do you think it matters whether you have a cultural connection to meditation? Do you see it as an activity that transcends all of that? I think it's an activity that transcends all of that. Does vegetarian plays a role in your life practice? But vegetarian is not a requirement of all Buddhist, traditions. So some are vegetarian, some are not. That's something that either maybe you may have a teacher that promotes it, because there are some Tibetan Buddhist teachers that have promoted vegetarianism, some that have not, and that are not vegetarian. It's not like a rule. So there's not a lot of rules per se in Buddhism. I mean, there are certain vows you take, if you're a monk, certain vows you take as a layperson as well. But I became a vegetarian just after I was a Buddhist, just because of where my mind started going in terms of relating to all sentient beings and stuff like that. But that's really my choice. I think it's something you have to come up with yourself, why you'd want to be a vegetarian, or vegan, or if a teacher kind of encourages you in that respect. Remember, the Buddhist teachings exist, right? There are great lamas. Dilgo Khyentse is passed away, but I post on Instagram stories, especially lots of Buddhist teachers and teachings, many of whom are alive, that you can subscribe to their website or email list, maybe see in person when quarantine's lifted. Maybe they're doing live webinars like this, and that's where you should, if you're inspired by the teachings, that's where you should be looking. I'm a student like you, and like, anything I try to answer here is based on what somebody's told me, but the real teachers have way more insight to all these questions that you have. I have a lot of back pain. I'm not able to really find a comfortable position. Can you lay any advice? Can you lay down it? Yeah, I mean, we've spoken a little about this. You have to deal with your own limitations, certainly. If you can't sit cross-legged on the floor, sit in a chair. And if you can't sit in a chair, lying down is good. The danger always with lying down is that you might fall asleep. But if you're dealing with limitations, and maybe sometimes that's what you do, then go ahead, do whatever you can do. Or you can also just try to do it seated in shorter bursts, or maybe both. What are your thoughts and what do Buddhist teachers say about regression, exploring what our past lives were? Well, I mean, Buddhism, reincarnation is a, is an aspect of Buddhism, something that Buddhists believe in. I don't know anything about regression. I don't know how to explore past lives. The whole issue about reincarnation, I think where a lot of people get stuck on reincarnation is what exactly is being reincarnated? Because Buddhists don't believe in a soul. Buddhists don't necessarily believe in a self. So, what is being reincarnated is more consciousness or mind stream. So, the faculties of memory may not be something that gets reincarnated. So, that may be why we don't remember our past lives. You know what I mean? Um, what exactly is it that's being reincarnated, and what are the qualities or faculties, if any, that get reincarnated? That's what it is. It's not like Michael, who's a Buddhist in this life, who grew up in New York, who's an actor, who has opinions and thoughts. Those things don't, they're just, impressions that kind of, and things that, and circumstances that arose in this lifetime. They're not eternal things, you know they're not essentially, they're not inherently existing things. They're not real in some ways, right? We relate to them as real, but they're not necessarily real. So what is it that gets reincarnated? That's the question. How can we stop ourselves from answering anger with more anger? By meditating a lot and becoming, you know, familiar with how your mind works. Once you've created negative karma, what is the best way to deal with that? Uh, Probably to create positive karma, and whatever negative karma you've created, to if there's ways of rectifying those things, making amends with those things, making peace with those things. But to resolve, find resolve not to create those kinds of negative karmas anymore, and work on creating good karma. Alexandra says, my teacher was Morrissey. Meat is murder, referring to vegetarianism. Yeah, meat. Morrissey's a musician who promotes vegetarianism. And when I was 19, I became a vegetarian, um, primarily because of Morrissey and that album, Meat is Murder. And that was 1985. It was very hard to be vegetarian, even in New York City then. It's a lot easier now. It's a lot more common. But then I stopped and I started eating meat again in my mid-20s because I wasn't, I think I hadn't really embodied why I wanted to be a vegetarian. I hadn't really made it mine. Do we all have access to mindfulness and Buddha then? Are we the eyes of the world, to quote a Grateful Dead song? So many little perspectives of the same thing. Don't some remember past lives? Do you think some people are just too sensitive and imaginative and prone? I used to get a pain in my third eye whenever I saw something sharp. I don't know anything about third eye. Do we all have access to mindfulness and Buddha? Well, I mean, the Buddha actually said that we all have Buddha nature. That is our kind of baseline, and everything else, our identity, our self, our complications, our negative emotions, our thoughts, and all that stuff are, obscurations to that. And our work, as practitioners, is cutting through all that. He didn't say that metaphorically. My teacher, Garchen Rinpoche, and I've said that before, said Buddha is not just the name of a man, it's the name of mind. They're not saying that metaphorically. That's not like, you know, a legend, or, a story, or a metaphor or something like that. Buddha said that for real. We all have Buddha nature, which means we all are basically, have enlightenment within us, and it's, accessible. That's why that's why he taught, so we can have that. He was not speaking metaphorically about that. Okay. How would you say you can draw the line between what you want and what you need, and also what may be damaging for the world? By, studying, by learning from, teachers, and trying to cultivate wisdom. Okay, let's meditate again. Let's do 11 minutes and then we'll close. Right. That's cool. So we did 24 minutes of meditation. Maybe one class we'll just do all meditation. We have our fine producer Nick Solidio has made us a YouTube channel called Meditation with Michael Imperioli on YouTube, and all the classes are there as well. They are archived on IGTV, on Real Michael Imperioli IGTV. But now there's a YouTube channel, and I think you may be directed there right when this ends, so you can just get a sense of what it looks like, which is great. I'm really, really, really happy about that. And thank you to Nick and his hard work, which he does actually as a volunteer, because as an offering to you guys, really, because he's very happy that people coming and practicing. So we should have a lot of gratitude to him and his generosity and kindness. Let's dedicate the merit today's practice. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. See you next week.